Hey friends, Al Iverson here. It's time for another one of your email authentication and deliverability questions answered. This time around, the question I'm going to answer is, would DMARC have prevented this? A couple weeks ago in the news, there was a few different mentions of what looks like some sort of state of Indiana related email hack or unauthorized email access. Here's a couple of different news reports on that. I'll put links below or in the description. You can see that multiple people reported receiving fake spoofed emails from official state of Indiana email addresses. And what actually happened there is that state of Indiana uses an email service provider platform to send emails for various state agencies and departments. As far as I can tell, they retired that ESP account sometime in last year in 2024. It might be the case that they, terminated a contract or switched vendors or something like that. I don't know the specifics of that beyond that. I don't think the ESP account was meant to be active and still usable. But what had happened is it was still there and still accessible. Bad actors were able to get into it. They had credentials for some employee or contractor, somebody who had logins for that account. They were able to get into it on May 12th, and they used it to send scam emails. Nothing particularly deep or interesting there. It was just the typical stuff that we've been seeing a lot of lately: pay your overdue toll spams. In this case, referencing Texas's toll system, not Indiana's. Definitely not the one that I'm used to from the 300 times that I've probably driven on the Indiana toll road. Unfortunately, these emails passed authentication checks because they came from an official account, right? The system was set up to be able to send authenticated email messages. And when somebody logged in with the credentials that were for one of the users that had access to that platform, they were able to send authenticated emails with whatever content they wanted. So the question here is, would DMARC have helped? Would DMARC have prevented this? And there's a bit of a nuanced answer there, but I think it boils down to yes, but. Now let's start with the bit of it that it's not going to prevent. If the domain had a P equals reject policy, that does not mean that this would have prevented the person from getting in there and sending the emails, or that would it have prevented delivery of those emails? No, it would not. The service was configured to send authenticated email messages, set up correctly, probably with SPF and DKIM in place, just as you're supposed to do. And so there's more going on here than just DMARC, right? The account should have been better protected. I don't know the details of that, but you can think of all the good things you should be doing to make sure that accounts that give access to email sending tools and store email related data, to make sure those tools are better protected, right? Multi-factor authentication, strong passwords, and then also disabling a service when it's no longer in use. That really is a big deal to me. The service should have been disabled and the DNS record should have been removed if indeed the contract term actually did end at some point in 2024. Leaving that sort of hanging on, laying out there to be able to still be in DNS means that somebody could log in, get access, and send emails. That should have been cut off. That access should have been cut off. That should have been shut down. There really should have been nothing to be able to get into there to do that. So it's unfortunate that that was left set up to be able to be exploited in that way for phishing and spoofing. So DMARC does not prevent that, but DMARC would have helped here. Valumail specifically could have helped here too. Now, in the broader sense, DMARC's reporting, helping you monitor all the places out in the world that are sending email as your domain, that's very helpful in scenarios like this. You can look at your aggregate DMARC reporting, look at the volume over time and say, hey, wait, there's unexpected volume coming out of this platform using my domain. Is it legitimate or not? Maybe I need to investigate. So that in that way, DMARC can potentially help, or at least give you some visibility into how many emails were sent and where they're going, where they're getting identified by DMARC RUA aggregate reporting. But more specifically, what could Valumail have done to help? And that's where our senders continuous protection reporting comes into play. This can give you some insight to show you the last time a sending platform was used, last time an authorized sending service was used. It also can monitor and track how old or when was the last time your DKIM keys were, for example, seen. So it allows you to check periodically. And this is, I think, a best practice, or should be a best practice for anybody monitoring their domain security, to look periodically, perhaps a couple or a few times a year, to look at all the senders authorized, all the authorized sending services for your domain, and see, are there ones that are no longer in use? And maybe I should revoke the authorization for those domains, for those services, excuse me, to be able to send as my domain. That's really important. This is a scenario where if somebody were using ValoMail and they were periodically reviewing to see what sender services they were using, what email platforms, what CRM tools, newsletter tools, whatever, they can look at it and say, oh, this tool has not shown up in our email stream. We're not sending emails from this tool, and it's been that way for more than 3 months, more than 5 months, whatever. You can look at that and go, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's a reason that I should take that out of the authorized senders list. Maybe that's an expired, maybe I should investigate and see if that's an expired sending service or an expired contract, something we don't use anymore. So in that way, it's very important to track and review periodically to see what sending services you've authorized to send as you. And that's something that the ValoMail is pretty good at helping with. And so tying it all together here, if you were at DMARC enforcement, meaning that you had P equals quarantine or P equals reject as the DMARC policy for your email domains, and you had deauthorized that ESP platform so that it's no longer an authorized sender, meaning there's no longer SPF or DKIM authentication records in place for those, then you'd actually be in a pretty good place when it comes to protection against phishing and spoofing. Bad guys could perhaps still get into that email account, right? I talked about how DMARC doesn't really control that. But if you have everything set up properly, you're keeping track of your authorized sending services, you're deauthorizing ones that are no longer valid and should no longer be used. Then, if bad guys try to send as your domain, it's just some other random spammer or spoofer. It's going to fail authentication checks. It's going to get rejected by the vast majority of mailbox providers, and they're not going to have much success trying to phish, trying to spoof your email domain. So that's where DMARC comes into play here, right? It doesn't protect against an unauthorized login, but if properly applied, it can help protect you in a scenario like this. That's everything I've got for you today. I hope you found this interesting. Hey, if you have any follow-up questions, especially something that you think might be fun for me to answer in a follow-up video, please drop me an email at al.iverson@valomail.com. And don't forget to visit our website at valomail.com when you're ready to embark upon your DMARC journey.